2. What is going on, fans of the Podstarz website and the Podstarz Team podcast? It's your boy Jay, and I am back here with one of our newest celebrity additions to the catalog. His name is Dante, and he checks 9 or 10 boxes. He's a comedian, he's a talent manager, he's got acting credits to his name, he's got a bio on the site that you will not believe. He fought Muhammad Ali, but I'll let him talk about that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dante. He's in California. My friend, how are you? Welcome to Podstarz. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks, man. And thanks for having me on the show and your site. I really am excited about your site. I told you when we first met that I was probably one of the very first people that Cameo called when they were starting up their company. And the owner, just like yourself, called me up and was pitching me on this idea. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a great idea. And I told you the exact same thing. So I'm guessing that within about a year, you guys will be as big as Cameo. That's my
I
guess.
mean, our doors blew open just over a year ago. We have seen a pretty big uptick. I wish I could brag more, but we're not where we want to be. But that's what
They
the
weren't
company is
either.
all
They
about,
weren't
right?
either.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It didn't happen overnight. Like it was the same exact thing as what you guys are doing right now. You're building. You
Yeah.
got to build. If you
Got to
build it,
build.
will come.
And the one thing that puts us behind everything else is being from Canada. It really sucks because we don't have access to Venmo or Cash App or a whole bunch of other things that, it's just, I don't know why we're so close to you guys, and it feels like we're in a third world, or on the other side of the planet. But here we are, and PayPal is our best friend right now. So we're taking it one step at a time, man. But I appreciate the kind words, and hopefully we will be the Cameo level website at some point. That's a goal. So.
Yeah, man. I think you will be. I think this is great. It's a great idea.
Well, you're one of our, I want to say we got about 5 comedians on the site. We work really hard to try and get comedy. That's kind of my vein. I love the comedians. I love Chappelle and Bill Burr. So tell me about your life as a comedian and how that's going, and anything that you'd like to talk about as far as stories or appearances, or what do you got?
Sure, sure. So I started stand up when I was actually 7 years old. I grew up on a Navy base here in California, and my dad was in charge of all of the entertainment. He was in charge of any time a president came to town, or when the astronauts needed to practice for the moon landing, they came to town and all these things. And so what happened was the Navy brought in an improv troupe, and me and my little buddy Jared, we went to go see it, and we were fans of comedy already. We used to listen to Richard Pryor and Bill Cosby, and oh, what happened there? Oh
Mm.
man. Sometimes
Next.
you think you can trust people wearing sweaters, but sometimes you can't. Anyway, um, I turned to my buddy Jared and I was like, Jared, let's be comedians. And he's like, okay. So we did it at my school. We won the talent contest. We did it. They moved us to all the other schools to do it. And then we did it in our backyard. And then our career was over because we were 7. And so even though I was 7 and we quit, I kept saying, I'm going to be a comedian when I grow up. And you know how kids are. Next thing you know, they're going to be a fireman. Then they're going to be a veterinarian. Then they're going to be a cop. Then they're going to be a teacher. Then. But I always wanted to be a comedian. And so when my parents finally moved me to San Diego when I was 12, I still didn't know I could do stand up yet. But by the time I hit 15, I kept seeing all these comedy store billboards and improv billboards. And I turned to my little buddy in high school, who was also, his name wasn't Jared, it was Gerald. And I said to him, hey, you want to be a comedian with me? And he goes, okay. So we started Dante and the Wolf comedy team. And within a month, we got on MTV and we won money. And then we go to the comedy store and I walk up to the front door and the doorman, it goes to my high school. And I was like, don't you have to be 21? So the doorman was famous. His name is Faison Love. Have you ever seen Friday?
Yes. Not in a
All right,
while.
he's big.
Yes.
He's Big Worm. Or if people have seen the movie Elf, he's the big heavy set black
Oh,
manager in Elf.
the guy with the clipboard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hey, yeah. Oh, no way.
So I walk up to the front and he's there, and I'm like, Faison, I thought you had to be 21. He's like, shut up, man. He's like, you do have to be 21, but I look like I'm 50. Keep your mouth shut. I'm gonna say, he's like, you're like 15, right? And because he was a couple years older. I'm like, yeah, man. He goes, listen, I'm gonna lie and tell him that you look like Ralph Macchio, that you're 19, that we went to school together, because they think I'm like 22 or 23. I'll tell them you're whatever, you're 19. And I said, okay. So what happened was me and my partner, we had to run into the comedy store because we were underage, perform, and then run out. And we had to do that for like a year and a half. And then when I got my fake 21st birthday, um, me and my partner, I think, had split up by then. And I was doing stand up on my own. And I remember very clearly I was standing there with a friend of mine who knew my real age, but no one at the Comedy Store did. And one of the guys on my fake birthday goes, "Hey, Dante, never forget this day. You'll never be 21 again." And my idiot friend goes, "Hey, you never know. He might be." I was like, shut up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's how I got started, man. And then when I did really turn 21, I moved to LA and I immediately got on this show on BET. For the white listeners out there, it's not a betting network, it's Black Entertainment Television. And I did really well. I became extremely famous on BET. I was like the most famous white guy on there, and I won 3 BET comedy awards.
Damn, that's gotta be
And
something, right? There's a belt, like a championship title belt.
yeah, man, it was crazy to win BET awards. I have them still. Um, like I wouldn't have them. That was
Yeah,
a
really.
dumb thing to say. Anyway, and then yeah, it was crazy. BET even gave me a sitcom for a couple of years called The Blackberry Inn. And then I've been a comedian so since 1986. I ended up on Last Comic Standing on NBC with Amy Schumer and Lavelle Crawford and a whole bunch of other people, and did very well on there. And I've just been on the road, and I've got to say this. I've never wanted to be Chris Rock or Dave Chappelle. And by the way, I think that all those guys are on another level. I think that that's how they get there, because they were comics before they were famous. Like I remember before Chris Rock was famous, we were all like, "Oh man, Chris Rock is coming. He's great." And people are like, "Who's Chris Rock?" We're like, "You don't know nothing. He's going to be huge one day." And so, you always know that there's just people at a different level. Like I'm sure people who played basketball with Michael Jordan weren't lying to themselves and saying, "Oh, I'm as good as him. I'm just not getting the attention."
Yeah,
No,
really.
he's on another level. Um, but that's not why I didn't want to be like them. I didn't want to be like them because I never wanted super fame. That was never my goal. My goal was to be a paid comedian, pay my bills, and have a fun, good life. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Get to
man.
tell wiener jokes and get paid to travel all over the world by telling wiener jokes. And it worked. And so now where I am in my career is, if I go to a comedy club for, let's say a Thursday, Friday, Saturday for 5 shows, and I sell out 350 seats per night, that's the sweet spot to me, man. I like,
Oh, that's awesome, man.
yeah, I don't want to go to a restaurant and not be able to eat because everyone's like, "Can I get a pic?" Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah. I've been in bathrooms where poor guys are trying to pee and people are talking to them and
Yeah,
like, trying to get a picture. And like, I am literally peeing, man. Can you step away? You know?
yeah.
So where my career is great. Like I'm in Gilbert, Arizona this weekend at JP's Comedy Club. And how many seats are there? Who knows? But I'm sure I'll do very well there, and I won't get molested on an airplane. I'm sure I'll have like one person recognize me and say hi or something. But that's the sweet spot to me.
That's awesome, man. I mean, like, I give comedians all the credit in the world because, like you probably heard this before, but like when I was a kid, you said you want to be a doctor, you want to be a policeman. I wanted to be a comedian for a short time. There was three things I wanted to be: NFL player, I had no talent; professional wrestler, I tried it and I realized I'm not tough enough to do it. I thought I was; it's just too hard. And then comedian were the top three. And I never had the guts to get up on stage because I tell you the truth, bro. I've seen YouTube clips and when people are getting just like heckled and roasted and like shit thrown at them and just booed, like I don't know, man, it takes a special kind of person to put all that in the back of your head and go out the next night and do the exact same thing. So I give you guys all the credit in the world. I don't know how you do
Oh,
it.
thanks, man. Yeah, you know what? I think part of how you get through those tougher times with hecklers and things like that is when you look at your mouth as a peaceful gun. Um, I had a friend of mine early in my career say that he went to jail for the weekend because of unpaid parking tickets. And it should have been something where when he went in, he could have gotten out the same day if he paid them and blah, blah, blah. But it happened on a Friday night. So he had to stay there till Monday, till the judges came back. And so he literally was in LA jail. And this was some skinny comedian. And he goes, "Man, there were guys that wanted to fight me. They wanted to rob me. They wanted to do this." He goes, "I used my jokes, and by the end of the weekend, I had pockets full of candy, pockets full of cigarettes, pockets full of everything because being funny, everyone was like, no one's funny in jail." He's like, "Man." And so I always remembered that. I was like, man, on stage, you can pretty much get away with anything if you don't have malice in what you're saying and you're funny. And to be honest with you, most hecklers in the world are not, hey, you suck, get off the stage, you F word, whatever. Most hecklers will say things like, I'll tell a joke about my mom making spaghetti or something, and they're like, oh, my mom made spaghetti. And they didn't say anything wrong. They were just having so much fun that they couldn't help that they shouted out. It's sort of like sometimes when you're watching a reality show or something at your house, and you're like, don't do that. Why are you saying, oh man, these people are idiots? That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's people having so much fun that they are talking. It's like being at a baseball game, when something happens and you yell something out and you look around, you're like, I didn't mean to yell, everybody, but that's what most heckles are. And you can't be mad at them. Like I was in the middle of my act in Reno and this woman was like, welcome to Reno. And I was like, that was a random thing to yell in the middle of my show. You know what I mean?
In the middle,
But,
not the beginning.
right. Just in the middle of my show. And then right after she said it and I talked back to her, somebody else went, welcome to Reno. I was like, is there like one brain cell popping up around this room to welcome me to Reno? What is happening here? But that's what most heckles are. They're trying to be helpful. They're trying to be, supportive and kind. Every once in a while, you get the kind of people that are drunk and misunderstand what you said. Like maybe I tell a racial joke that's actually about white people, but because I use black people in the example, then a black guy gets up and he's mad. And like, even his wife is like, you didn't hear it right. He wasn't talking about black people. He was talking about white people, or something like that. I've even had guns pulled and people threatened to kill me, but I used my mouth and made them laugh. I remember this one dude, he was like, man, I'm going to shoot you after the show. I've got my gun and blah, blah, blah. The bouncers came and got him and they did find his gun. It was right where he said it would be.
Oh.
But on the way out, I kept roasting this dude, roasting him. I'm like, man, you blah, blah, blah. And I said this and I talked about his shirt and I was talking about, and he starts laughing while they're carrying him out. And he goes, man, you're funny. I'm not going to kill you anymore, but I'm going to kill these two.
Nice.
That's how you get out of it.
Reflection. Nice. I like that.
Yeah.
I like the comedians who I've seen who, when they respond to someone who, yeah, you're right, just like blurt something random out during the show. You'll see like a Louis C.K. was one of the guys I saw do it, who was like, well, thanks for trying to ruin this for the other, 10,000 people who are in the audience. This is an appropriate time. And then usually you could see that kind of deflates them and they take it down a level. But there are those people who, man, they're on that mountain to die and they've already started the interruption. So they just keep going with it. It turns into like a back and forth. So, I mean, I'm sure you've had that at least once.
Yeah, well, honestly, I'm probably a bad example because if you come to my show, I'm so interactive that hecklers don't honestly bother me unless they're so drunk that they're stepping on all of my punchlines and I can't get a word out.
Okay.
But most people are actually kind of funny and helpful. And like I was talking about how, what did I say? I was talking about how like on stage I have this bit about how any man wants to show his penis all the time. Like no one ever asked to see our penises. That's why we send wiener pics, right? And some lady yells out, show us your penis. And I was like, lady, I haven't been paid yet. And she goes, get him his check. I was like, that's hilarious. So it's like, sometimes they are funny. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's how interactive I am, is like, that didn't bother me. I wasn't mad at her. I didn't say, please shut up.
Yeah.
Sometimes if people are talking too much, I'll have some witty comebacks, or if they, a lot of times they're drunk, you can't even understand them. So I'll just be like, look, you need to buy a vowel. Nothing you're saying is English anymore, things like that.
Yeah.
But it's never usually about let's hurt this person or take them down, because if you do, it makes them more combative. It makes them want to keep going.
That makes sense. It's just like high school all over again, just a bigger setting and a more public setting, obviously.
Yes.
So you just briefly touched on something about making a race joke and blah blah blah. So my question is, nowadays with the internet and the cancel culture and all that horse shit that goes on nowadays, I mean, it seems like comedians are almost untouchable, I would think, because most people understand that what you guys are doing is for entertainment purposes. You're not spewing venom like people do on Twitter. But then there are also some comedians who have crossed the line, some people might say, or whatever. Where do you stand on that whole thing? I mean, cancel culture, I personally think,
you know what? It's one word. It's called malice. If you have malice in what you're saying, if you mean it, just like, I hate to say it, what's his name? Richards from Seinfeld.
Oh,
when
Michael
he used
Richards.
the N-word at the Laugh Factory. that was malicious.
Yeah.
It was. He was calling black people the N-word because he was mad at them for heckling him.
Right.
And he got what he deserved. I think his career ended over it, because if you're going to act like that on a stage where people came to paid to see you, and you're going to spew hate like that, then you're done, man.
Yeah.
But what you said is correct. Most comics, 99.99999%, get up there with the intent of making you laugh, not the intent of how can I divide this room in half and make them hate black people, or make them hate, you know, this group or women, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Even if you do say something that is offensive, if you're saying it as a joke and it's truly taken as a joke by 99.9% of the crowd, that 0.1% that does get offended doesn't matter. They really don't. And it's like, I remember after COVID, my wife is a comedian, and she's about 13 years younger than me, and very, very woke. And look, the way I look at the word woke is, some people are so angry about everything these days. Oh, if you say this, you're woke. If you're about, woke isn't a bad thing. Woke means you don't hate women. Woke means you don't hate gay people. Woke means that, you know, you're not out there telling black jokes behind black people's back. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you're not racist. So I am woke. We should all be woke, I think. But there is a limit to people's wokeness, I believe, where I'm not going to let some 20-year-old control what I can and can't say just because they think something is woke and I don't.
Yeah.
But she did give me this warning. She's like, look, you grew up in this day and age where you were on BET talking about black people all the time, and you say all these racial jokes and blah, blah, blah. And I said, honey, I've never been in trouble. Not one time in my life has someone gotten me in trouble for something I said. But she did make me nervous because, you know, the culture of the world did change, and my act sort of sucked for about 6 months because I was trying to cut out things thinking I would be in trouble for them. And then one day I went to Alaska, and I was like, you know what? I am so tired of not just doing my act. I'm in Alaska for a week where I'm going to go to the big city. I'm going to the small cities. I'm going to be everywhere. It's a good test of where my jokes are, whether I can tell them or not. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm in like Democratic places, Trump places, you know, just different places. I'm going to try them everywhere. And you know what? They all killed. They all worked. You know, things that she said you can't say anymore, I even made fun of. You know, like I said, my wife says you can't say the word Oriental anymore. And I was like, I don't understand that, because I think Oriental sounds fancy. Like, I wish I was from the Orient. You know what I mean? But then I went home and I got high and I realized, oh, I get why we can't say Oriental. It's because Asian people can't say it.
I got it.
And it is kind of probably true. It's like, you know, if you can't even say the word people are calling you, that's kind of messed up.
True enough. True enough. What do you think about this new generations of comedians that are with us now? So, I mean, I'll start with, so you brought up Richard Pryor. We'll go with Eddie Murphy, Bill Cosby before the, you know, so we all know those guys are classics. Then you got your Chris Rock. So he's in that SNL, you know, sort of bubble, but he's obviously bigger than that. I'm talking about the guys now, like not so much Bill Burr because he's been around over, you know, 20 years, but like Anthony Jeselnik, Bert Kreischer, Tom Segura, my favorite Jim Jeffries. These guys, it just seems like they can do no wrong, and they're just killing it and they're crushing it. What are your opinion on those guys? Do you love them all? Do you not like?
Oh, you know what's funny is, like, yes, you mentioned a whole different generation that is, you know, mostly dead or old, like Cosby and Pryor and things like that. But then when you look at like Kreischer, you know, Jeselnik, Anthony Jeselnik, 20 years ago, people don't realize how long he's been doing it. 20 years ago, he won my comedy contest here in LA. He was actually the first person to win my comedy contest that I put on in LA, called the US Comedy Contest.
No shit.
So it's not like he, yeah, so it's not
That's
like he
awesome.
just started. He's been around forever. Bert Kreischer's been around forever. Tom Segura's been around forever. They just didn't get famous until recently. I mean, it's
Right.
not like, you know, these guys are in their 50s. It's not like they just started in their 40s or something.
Yeah.
They started in their 20s, their 30s. But I'm not going to lie and say I have enough time to go watch every comedian. But I will say this, I've never seen a famous comedian that I was ashamed of. I've never like watched Bert Kreischer's, special as I'm flipping channels, saw a couple jokes and went, oh, he's a joke.
Right.
Why? You know what I mean? Even on that flight to Alaska, I realized I had never seen Matt Rife. And at the time I was flying there, he was in a lot of trouble over a couple of things. And I thought, man, I've never even watched this kid. I better watch him. And all these comics were doing nothing but spewing hate online. Who is this kid? He's not funny. He's not fun. I watched his special and laughed out loud the whole time. He's funny, And I
His
was
crowd
like,
work is superior. It's amazing.
yeah, I mean, and then, yeah, his crowd work is great. He's funny. And especially for how young he is and how little time he's done it. And to also be have model looks that work against you, because it makes the guys in the audience actually hate you. Of course, all the girls are going to find him cute and want to listen, but he's working against his looks. And for me, I was like, man, stop hating on this dude. He's funny. He's getting the job done. I always look at it like this. If people are paying to come see that person in an arena and I don't find him funny, there must be something wrong with my sense of humor.
Right. No,
You know?
I never understood why these people go to comedy shows and find a way to get angry or offended or like that. It's like, did you not know where you were going when you had the ticket in your hand? You were at the door. Like you
Right.
see
It's
the
not
poster
the
on the
take
wall.
things serious show. It's the comedy show.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I guess some people get roped into it by their dates or whatever, and I guess they don't have that sense of humor. But there are those people who go there knowing.
It's the worst shows that are like that? Corporate shows. Because at a corporate show, you're performing for Pepsi Cola or Cisco or whatever that may be. And the reason they suck is that everyone is there wanting to have their Christmas party or whatever it is. They didn't expect a comedian. So they didn't pay to go see comedy. So first of all, they're upset that, oh no, somebody's cutting grass. Maybe I should move in.
Gotcha.
Can you hear that? Is it
Oh,
distracting?
no, I don't
Oh,
hear
you
anything.
can't hear it? Okay.
Oh.
So anyway, all I was going to say is they suck because no one expected comedy. And then the worst part is they're sitting next to their boss. Their boss is up front with their arms folded. And now if I tell, like I remember the very first time I ever did a corporate shows for my dad's company that he worked for. And I told a roach joke about a cockroach, right? And I named the cockroach after my best friend. His name was Anthony Ramos. And I named the roach Ramos. And the joke was just that, man, I have roaches at my house. They follow me out, worried about me. They're like, oh, how late are you staying out? I get so worried about you. I forget what the joke was, but it was non-offensive, right?
Yep.
After the show, I get this lecture from this guy. Well, I'm going to pay you, but we were very offended because there's Hispanic people that work for us, and you named a roach after his. I was like, I named it after my friend who's standing right here. Tell them your name. He's like, my name's Ramos. He's like, we wrote the joke together. But that's happened to me. I was at another corporate show, and I talked about a fat guy on an airplane that I sat next to. And all of a sudden, this priest comes up on stage, grabs me, and goes, "You're going to get off stage now." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "The owner of the company's wife is fat, and they're both offended." And he walks me off the stage.
That's fair. Jesus Christ.
I was like, yeah, corporate gigs, they pay the most. They pay the most. Like I remember, I forget what company, with Pepsi or somebody, they flew me out to Chicago, first class, limousines, nicest hotel. I did 5 minutes for like $5,000, but it was still like 5 minutes underwater. It was
God.
horrible. It
So
was like,
do these company gigs ever work out on the positive then? Because I hear so many other comedians say the same thing because people aren't expecting it. You're interrupting their party time or whatever else, and all of a sudden you're on stage and they expect the world or whatever, and then you're just there. So
they almost never work out. Almost never. I did one show. One show worked out, man. I was up in the Bay Area this one time, and they told me to be clean, and everyone liked me. But the owner came up to me right after my show and he goes, "Man, you are funny." He goes, "I just wish you were dirty." I'm like, "I'm always dirty. Your people told me to go clean." He's like, "If I pay you another 3,500, will you go back up for 10 more minutes and do your dirty?" And I was like, "I will do that for 20 minutes if you want." And I did. And then I killed again and he handed me double the money. It was crazy.
That's decent. Yeah, that's decent. That's decent. Are you aware of any of this controversy going on with Segura and Kreitcher because of the YouTube videos and all this stuff that's going on right now?
The controversy. I
Yeah,
mean, look, I get my news
a lot
from
of hate.
YouTube when it comes to comics, because when I go check my own videos, there's a couple people that I follow that follow comedians and give like comedy news. And so I'm always seeing clips of those two together, Kreischer and him, and they are sort of in trouble right now, especially with comedy news people. Like the comedy news people, like these guys are on the outs, but I
Yeah,
still don't know why. I know it started at that roast when they
they bombed.
is there something else I'm missing?
Well, I guess people are just on the for some reason they're on the hate Kreischer train. Like they have, and because Segura's tied in with them, and because they're always together, it just seems like it's a double teamed attack. But it's always by non-comedians, and it's just like it's like Twitter except on YouTube. It's the people who are at the bottom of the world attacking people who are successful, and it's gaining steam. That's the killer thing. Like there's one guy who makes video after video after video about how Kreischer's arrogant and only talks about how rich he is, and how he loves to drink and party, and like the way that the social media is, and I that's why I said before comedians are almost untouchable. It just seems like YouTube is where comedians get attacked, not on Twitter, not on Instagram or like that, but YouTube seems to work, man, and I don't get it.
Yeah, I have to. I have heard those things that you said, and the only one that I will agree with that can be a bit offensive is when Tom and Christina, his wife, call people the poors because they're supposed to be so rich. Yeah, I was talking to the poors. Do you know that the poors use washcloths still? Things like that. I was like, and they're like being serious. They're not trying to be that funny.
Right.
It's like they just think that it's like their brand is saying these things and people won't be offended by it. Another thing that offended me one time was Bobby Lee was talking about how during the downside of his career, he was complaining that he was only making 7,500 a week. And I thought, man, there's people who don't make that, hardly in a year as comedians. And you're complaining that you're only making 7,500. That's when you're like, okay, you need to stop talking about money when you get that crazy that you think 7,500 a week is your poor period.
Right. Yeah. No,
But I don't hate any of these guys. I don't want to, by saying that I don't want people to dislike Bobby Lee or Tom or Christina or Bert. I'm just pointing out maybe they shouldn't talk like that because it is offensive, because most humans actually, would love to make 7,500 a month.
Yeah.
Let alone per week, and wouldn't be complaining about it. And even if they did make that much money, they sure wouldn't be calling everyone else the poors.
No, I totally agree. I'm glad that you mentioned how hard Anthony Jeselnik's working, because I'm one of the only people in my peer group that know who he is, and like I love that guy. Like
Me
throwing the
too,
baby out
man.
with the
He's funny.
bathwater was one of the best specials I've ever seen.
Dude, you know how hard it is to say everything with kind of a mean, smug, straight face and tell killer jokes and
Right.
make people laugh? Because most people, you're out there like this and laughing with them, and he's just like, and then blah, 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 blah. But he's always been that funny. He's always been a killer writer.
Yeah, he's his I don't know if you want to say his tone. I don't know how you would, but you're right.
It's smug. It's very smug.
It is. He talks about how beautiful he is and how like all that. He's fantastic. So I'm no shock to me that he won your talent
Agreed.
competition back in the day.
Agreed, man. And back to the all the people we just mentioned. I look, they're not gonna watch this thing. It's not like I'm apologizing for anything I said. I don't want it to take away that they're all funny. They are. Christina Pudzinski is probably funnier than the two guys. She is. She may not be on the podcast or whatever, but I've known her personally for years and always was a huge fan of hers, saying how she's a killer, she should be more famous and blah blah blah. And now she is, and she's not getting the credit for it, But she's funny, man. Always has been.
So other than the comedy, what else have you done? Like you've done so much on your bio, I've seen. So like, what would you like to talk about that maybe you don't get to talk about enough?
I don't know. I do like being a manager for talent. That is my day job. I own a company called Golden Artists Entertainment, and me and my wife, we have a production company. We have a booking division where we book comedians and singers and celebrities. And then we also have the management side where I manage about 75 actors, celebrities, comedians, and help develop their careers and get them agents and bookings and so on. And we have a lot of great talents and a lot of, household names and Academy Award winners and lots of people that, if you go to goldenartistsentertainment.com, you can see who we have and hire people for your next corporate event.
There you go. Because you've made him sound so positive.
You know what's crazy though? Look, maybe I'm the wrong comic, and maybe some of these comics that you've heard were the wrong comics for the wrong shows.
Mhm.
Like when I went to that one show, the guy loved me. When I went to somewhere else, they didn't because they were more uptight. When I did a show for all engineers, not the boop boop kind, but the I've got a big brain kind, um, I was the wrong comic. I'm sitting there telling, you know, wiener jokes and stuff like that, and they wanted me to tell engineer jokes. And then I saw this comic recently who makes his money going to engineer conventions. And I watched his act. And even though I'm not an engineer, I was like, man, half of these jokes are going over my head, but I get the joke. Like he's killing in front of these engineers, killing. I wish I could think of his name. Doesn't matter.
But
But
it makes
anyway,
sense what he's doing though, because he's making sure that if he ever gets a corporate gig, he does the research and all that on where he is, and he has that joke, so he never will bomb or have that 5 minutes underwater. Or
sure.
that makes total sense. That's
Yeah,
smart.
and it's like certain corporate gigs that I've done better at, they help you. They say, "Hey, you know, we're a little uptight about this, we're a little uptight about that, but go crazy on this." And the owner, he owns this and that. And if you talk about his wife, he'll love it because they broke up and she stole his money and all those things. If you like last night I teach these comedy classes, these private classes where even professionals call me up and say, "Hey, help me write these jokes or rewrite these jokes." So I was working with a guy last night, and it was actually pretty fun because he's playing a 20-year high school reunion, and we had fun looking up what was big in 2004 as opposed to 2024 and writing jokes about it. Like I think he goes, "What can we write about Britney Spears in 2004?" He goes, "Let me look." He goes, "Oh, she was married for 51 hours." And I said, "Oh yeah, and in 2024 she was 5150'd." Heyo.
Yeah, she's
Um,
she's going through some stuff.
yeah, she's going through stuff, man. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's corporate can be fun. But what else would I want to talk about? You know what I don't do on a daily basis, but I guess I kind of do through my social media. But I've always been an activist. I've always been
Oh wow.
fighting for underdogs. I remember in college doing a lot of sit-ins for Nelson Mandela and apartheid and fighting for people's rights when in America they were trying to, take away rights from the LGBTQ community, which I'm not a part of. I understand human rights,
Right.
like, um, or when they wanted to get married or whatever, or even like during the BLM movement here in America, um, I we all know it's wrong.
Right.
There's people like, "Oh, well, you shouldn't fight back." Not everyone fought back. The police were shooting people in their homes for no reason. And it's like, how is that bad to say that that should be wrong? Because it is wrong. You know what I mean? Like, can't we all agree that shooting someone for even resisting arrest with no gun in their hand or whatever, or murdering them is bad? And so I remember what happened is something during BLM happened in front of my house where there's helicopters out there and cop cars. And I go outside and there's this, like, my daughter was probably 18 and this kid was about 18, black kid on the ground. And the police, they've all got guns drawn on him. And he's in a nice SUV. And then two other young guys get out. And then a grandpa gets out. They're all dressed very nice. Like they just came to California on vacation. I can spot a tourist a mile away. And I start filming, and after about 40 minutes of these guys all laying on the ground and the grandpa screaming that his knees are killing him and all this stuff, I start yelling at the police. What did they do? And now my neighbors start coming out of their house because I'm screaming. Pretty soon, a sergeant or whatever, I don't know what he is, a captain, somebody pulls up in a car. And because I'm close and I'm filming, I can hear, and the crowd's over there chanting whatever I had yet been yelling. But I hear this cop and I get it on video going, "I don't know why we pulled him over. The helicopter said, pull over that car." Then the helicopter took off. And now it's 45 minutes later and we still don't know why we pulled him over. And I yelled that to the crowd. I was like, they've been here for 45 minutes and these cops don't even know why they pulled him over. And they've been treating them like, blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, they had to let them go. And that old man spent a couple of weeks in the hospital because it ruined his knees. It put like water on his knees, like this big onto his knees. And he had come out here to California for his first time ever with his grandkids. They were treating him because he had just beaten cancer. And
Oh,
their
God.
very first day in California, as they drove into Hollywood, they got pulled over, and that's what happened to them. And so I decided that when I was out driving during that year, that anytime I saw cops pull someone over, I would film it. And do you know that out of hundreds and hundreds of times that I saw this happen, there was maybe once or twice where they didn't do something wrong, where it was as bad as that or worse, every single time. I remember I pulled over and there were these three black girls sitting in a car, and one of them was bleeding. I said, "What happened?" And they go, "That white guy over there attacked us. He punched her in the face. He punched me. He scratched me here. We called the police." I film. There is a white guy sitting on the ground by himself, and the cop is over like talking to someone else on the phone. This guy's not in handcuffs. Not in handcuffs. Then an ambulance pulls up, and instead of going up to these women, it goes up to the white guy. And I was like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
And the cop was like, "Why are you filming?" I was like, I said, "Am I not allowed to film?" He's like, "Yeah, you can film." But I just realized, man, every cop that I ever filmed was like, "Why are you filming? Turn that off." I was like, if you're not doing something wrong, you would want
Don't
me to
care.
film. If you're being a hero, you'd be like, "Man, I can't wait for my wife to see this."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know where to go with that, because it sucks. Like, it's almost like the stereotype got taken to the next level. Whereas,
Right.
that's
Yeah. And it's like, look, man, I'm sure there's great cops out there. There have to be. There's really good people. But here was the one thing that I got out of that movement and that time period. I used to have a sign that I would, or a shirt I made, and it said, "If you have 2,000 good cops protecting 20 bad cops, you have 2,020 bad cops."
yeah,
Because it's true. Because every time I turned in those videos to the city, they wrote me back and said, "Everything you've said to the city was a lie. We've also, we are not going to be investigating this." You wait a year and a half to get that letter back, and I have hundreds of them sitting in my drawers. Not one time did they ever say that the police did something wrong.
no accountability, right? I mean, yeah, it's
Zero accountability. And it's just so frustrating, man. Like, because I want to live in a society where we love and respect the police officers. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice, for cops to drive by and kids to wave at them instead of being like, "God, I hope they don't see me. I hope they don't notice me."
right. Yeah.
If they're good, pull out a camera the next time you see a cop and see how they react. It's the craziest thing you've ever seen. Why are you filming? What are you doing? What do you want?
Makes sense. I mean, yeah, you're right. Like, if I'm
If
being
you're
filmed,
doing
then I'm doing
something
good. Who knows? You could go viral for being a hero, or
right.
that great cop who does the beat, that sort of thing. But
And then what also got me, man, was everybody along the way. If I called their sergeant, he treated me like poop. If I reported it to the captain, he treated me. And then everybody who had to sign those letters that were sent to my house had to watch the videos. They had to sign off on it. There was not one good person along the way that ever stepped in and said, "My God." I even had a meeting with the captain of the department that all of this was happening out of, and showed him a video. I like edited one together of all the bad things that they had done. And he goes, "Yep. Okay. Well, thanks for showing us." And that was that.
oh, you think you would have got just a little bit more response than that?
I realized there's, even when you show them doing bad things, punching people, hitting innocent people, all those things, that they don't care. They don't care. It's so corrupted that they feel like if you turn on your brother, then then everyone else will turn on you. So it's a bad system. It doesn't need to be like that. But we have lots of bad systems in America. It's like I just saw a meme today where they were like, why is it okay for America not to tax billionaires? It's like we tax everyone but billionaires and giant corporations in America.
Yeah, they get
It's
tax
the
breaks.
dumbest thing.
Yeah.
When Donald Trump, who's a billionaire, claims that, when we finally saw his taxes, the reason he kept hiding them is because he paid, what was it, in 2017, he paid $800.
Yeah, really.
I paid more than 800 in 2017, and I'm nowhere close to even a millionaire.
Right. Yeah. It's a shame that you have this much passion about something that you can't actually turn into your comedy show because they just do not correlate whatsoever. But you have passion about comedy and you have passion about being an activist, but yeah, they just don't meet. So let's meet in the middle. Let's go back to talent management. How did you get into this? And like, how is your phone constantly ringing? I mean, why did you put this stress on yourself? Because it seems like one of those jobs that would be just incredibly like you never get to sleep.
Okay, so you're right. If you ever watched Entourage, it's like being Ari Gold.
Ari,
It's
yeah.
you're constantly getting, like, I woke up to phone calls. I will be dealing with this till I go to bed at midnight or whatever. This hour that I'm on here with you will be the only time I get to relax throughout the day. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at my thing because I have a 1 o'clock meeting I have to go to. Luckily it's just on Zoom from my house. But the way I got into it was I was writing for Joan Rivers on a TV show called Fashion Police. I was writing and directing a bunch of pretty well-known commercials. I was writing and directing some movies and working for a whole bunch of different companies, and even big companies that I was working for, like the Batman movies and Adam Sandler movies and all this stuff. And one day my wife said, why don't we stop working for everyone else and start our own entertainment company? If people want to hire writers, we're writers. If they want us to, instead of hiring some other production company that you go hire, let's have our own production company. She goes, all these celebrities that you started with that are more famous than you live in our neighborhood and wonder, how is it that you live in the same neighborhood even though you're half as famous? And it's because they know you're good at hustle. They know that you're good at the business side. They probably aren't. They had to rely on some agent that gets them the work, whereas you went out and got yourself that money. And so she goes, let's start. And I was like, babe, I don't have time. I can barely handle my own career. She's like, come on, you get yourself some gigs and then you go work 1 hour a night as a comedian. You have time. She goes, I'll even be your first client. And then, I'll handle the production side. And we started, and she was right, man. Within a couple of days, some celebrities came and started being our clients, and then it just started growing from there. And you make mistakes along the way, and you realize, oh, I've spread myself out too thin. And I met with an agent one day, and I said, hey, man, give me advice. He goes, look, do everything at first, figure out what you're good at, and then condense. Just start doing all the things you're good at and get rid of all of the other stuff. And he was right. By around the 5 year mark, we're coming up on our 10-year mark, but by around the 5 year mark, I went, okay, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. We don't need this anymore. We have too many clients. Let's pick all the viable clients who are actually working, not just the ones that, because we needed this look or that look, they're not working. And so that's how we started. My wife was like, let's go get a lawyer. Let's sign papers. Let's, form a corporation. And it's been great. We've made some movies. We made a movie called Bro, What Happened with Bobby Lee, myself, my wife, Jamie Kennedy. There were tons of people in that movie. Mr. Belding from Saved by the Bell was in it. Lorenzo Lamas was in it. About 100 comedians. It's really funny. It was sort of like Superbad meets The Hangover on a college campus.
Okay.
We made a horror movie last year. I did a war movie called Unfallen with Michael Madsen and James Hong. James Hong is that guy who's like 98 years old. He's that older Asian guy who's been in every movie since like the 70s.
Oh, I love Hall. Oh yeah, he Seinfeld 4. That guy?
Yes. Yeah. It was funny, man. I do an impression of James Hong, and when I did it for him on the movie set, he goes, okay, I'm not coming in for dubbing. He goes, I mean it. You're doing my dubbing. And I ended up having to do the dubbing for his voice. So you want to meet the golden child? Yeah. Why don't you stay home and make noodle like the rest of your family?
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
he's the dad in Kung Fu Panda.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thank God my kids are older. I'm done with the Disney cartoons, brother. Done. Yeah, Michael Madsen too. Huge fan of Michael Madsen.
Oh, me too,
Off
man.
the
It was
ear.
crazy. I have all these scenes with Michael Madsen. I was like, man, that's crazy.
Yeah, man, that guy. Reservoir Dogs was one of my things growing up. I danced to that song more times than I like to admit.
Oh yeah. That little green bag, is that what it is?
Yeah. No, 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 no.
Oh no, that's
Stuck in the middle
also
with
in
you.
it. Yeah, what is it?
Stuck in the middle with you.
Stuck in the middle with you.
Yep.
Yeah, where he's got the razor blade or whatever.
That shit was quality back in the day, man. Never saw
Yeah,
anything like that.
man.
No. So you like I don't want to keep you any longer, but what I do want to do is officially walking you to Podstarz. You are available, although you keep telling us everyone how busy you are. I don't know how many podcasts you're actually be able to do at this rate. You got a lot of stuff on your plate, but
You
welcome
know
to
what? Luckily,
Podstarz.
I own the company. I can always take off. And my wife, like, right now she's handling all the stuff that I can't. And then we also have some employees. So it's not like, I can't ever get away. But yeah, I like doing this because it promotes the business. I got to say that I'll be at JP's in Gilbert, Arizona this week and all, it's all together,
Yeah, man. It's the pod
I gotta keep up. I gotta keep up my fame, the company's fame, all that stuff.
the world of
And I'm really
podcasting
excited
is
about
so
your
much.
company, man.
Thank you, thank you. That when I saw the way podcasting was transforming pretty much everything. I mean, it's pretty much killing terrestrial radio. It's giving everybody an audience. Like people will listen to this podcast not because of Podstars, but because your name's attached to it, and then someone else will do that, and it's a steamroll effect, and that's why we made Podstars was so that if you're a struggling podcaster and maybe you have a comedy podcast, have a comedian on your podcast that you're not having to beg, chase on their DMs, constantly tweet at. They're there. It's clear. It's all done through the site. You get the notification. They get the notification. You guys meet up. It's cut and dry. But I mean, like the
And
podcast
as
is
you can see,
crazy.
comedians know how to talk. We don't shut up.
Yeah, man.
It's like you're not gonna have a dry moment on the show.
It's like comedians are one of the best guests because you guys can take it anywhere. You can make almost anything funny. And if you see that maybe the podcast is struggling, or maybe this is one of their very first interviews, maybe you can kind of guide them in the right direction because you guys have all done a billion podcasts, or used to it. And that's the beautiful thing about comedians. That's the beautiful thing about podcasts. I'm glad we're putting it all together on Podstarz, and I'm definitely glad that you are a member and you're bringing us some of your clients. That's awesome. So thank you very much, sir.
And I'm
Appreciate that.
still, I'm still, yeah, bugging some of the other ones. I'll get more people on there for you, man, because I really believe in what you're doing.
Thank you. You know the guy we're talking about, who we both got back and forth. I want that guy.
Me too, man. And he's got so many followers that if he just, look, and he's got his own popular podcast, like it could be good for everybody.
That's why I want to give me a 10-minute Zoom call with him. I'll get him on Podstars.
All right. All right. And the last time I mentioned it to him, he sounded like he was going to hit you up. So I'll just re-mention it.
All right, man. I appreciate that, man. Listen, you're all the way in California. It's beautiful out there. It's cold here in Toronto. So thank you very much for doing
You
this for
got
me.
it. I
I
love
really appreciate
Toronto,
it.
by the way. Real quick, can I mention
Yeah, man.
follow me at comicdante.com and on all social media, I am Dante the Comic, Dante the Comic.
Are you any more do you use one app more than the other? Like are you a big Facebook guy, Twitter guy,
You
Instagram
know
guy?
what?
All of
Honestly,
them.
when I post on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram all the same time, same day. It may have different kinds of stuff. Like I'm very political on Twitter, whereas I'm not really political on the other ones. I have more stand up on TikTok and Instagram than I do even Facebook.
Gotcha.
Facebook is mainly family and friends, and I'll promote this and that there. And I promote across the board. Like if I'm performing at JP's in Gilbert, Arizona, you'll see that on everything. But my stand up, it's everything's at YouTube also, which is also Dante the Comic 2522. That's where I need 40 more people to follow me there so I can monetize, damn it. I have 960 followers. You need 1,000.
All right. I didn't know you had that, so you just gained one more. So you're down to 39.
All right, good. I have
39.
hundreds of videos, hundreds of stand-up videos. If you want to learn stand-up, I've got almost 300 videos on stand-up of how to be a comic.
Oh, so yeah, and that's good for struggling comics. I mean, that's an amazing thing that you're doing there. That's perfect. When you
It's
said
all free.
you're being political on Twitter, though, there's a rabbit hole you don't want to go down. Wow, I can't believe you. I've seen how that goes for some people. I want
Well,
nothing to
look,
do
as
with
a
that.
CEO, maybe I shouldn't, but I always feel like if I'm on the right side of things, and here's why. I feel like I'm a good judge of what's right and wrong, especially in America, because in America, we are divided with our politics right now. There's gangs, there's blue gangs and red gangs, just like Crips and Bloods.
Yeah,
But the difference is I was raised by Crips and Bloods. I was raised by a Republican and a Democrat, and I have voted that way my entire life. So I see both sides. Like I had a guy call me up for a podcast who was trying to take me down because he saw my activism. So he thought he was going to get me by coming on strong as a Republican. And I was like, no, I agree with the death penalty. He's like, what are you talking about? You agree? I agree with voter IDs. What? So it's like you can't take me down.
right, right. The only things you're against are the things that shouldn't be happening in the first place, pretty much.
Right. Just yeah, fair and reasonable. That's it. And I believe in science.
Yeah, science is a thing.
It's
I
a thing, man.
it's definitely a
People
thing.
are like, well, you believe in masks? I believe that they don't cure anything, but I believe that they definitely help stave off things. Yes. That's why every doctor in the world wears it. If you thought it was a cure, you're an idiot.
There you go. There's another touchy subject. You don't want to get that started, man. I've seen where that
I
goes
don't
too.
mind. It's called science, man. I actually deal in facts.
I got you. I got you. All right, Dante. Thank you so much, my
Thanks for having
friend.
me on, brother. I appreciate
Hey,
you, Jake.
anytime, man. We're gonna do this again real soon. Thank you so
You
much.
bet.
Have a
Thanks for
good one.
having me on, buddy.
You're welcome,
Bye.
buddy. Thank you.